shadows in the backwater. On the outskirts of the small town of Black Creek, lost in the Florida swamps, life flowed slowly and calmly. Children played in the streets, adults worked on farms or in local stores, and old people sat on their porches sipping cold lemonade. But everything changed one hot summer day when an uninvited guest entered the quiet waters of the local river, a huge crocodile. Chapter 1: Quiet Town. Black Creek was a typical southern town. Everyone knew their neighbors, and children grew up playing outdoors. The Johnson family lived on the outskirts, next to the forest and the river. Tommy, a 12-year-old boy with red hair and freckles, was the ringleader among the local kids. His best friend, 13-year-old Jake, was calm and reasonable, but always ready for an adventure. And their friend, 11-year-old Emily, was brave and curious, despite her young age. One morning, Tommy suggested that his friends go to the river to play pirates. Their parents warned them to be careful, but the children, as always, did not take it seriously. They took fishing rods with them to go fishing, and sandwiches made by Tommy's mother. Chapter 2: Warning Signs. When they reached the river, Tommy immediately noticed something strange. The water was murky, and on the bank there were deep tracks that looked like huge paw prints. Jake, who liked to read books about animals, frowned. "Those are crocodile tracks," he said, "but they don't live this far north." Emily laughed. "Maybe it's just an old turtle." Tommy, as always, was in the mood for adventure. "Come on, don't be a coward. Let's go for a swim." The children undressed and went into the water. It was warm and pleasant, but something about its calm seemed ominous. Chapter 3: Attack. A few minutes later, Emily noticed that the water around her was moving. She turned around and saw a huge shadow rising from the depths. Before she could scream, powerful jaws closed around her leg. A crocodile, more than 4 meters long, emerged from the water and dragged the girl into the depths. Tommy and Jake screamed in horror. They tried to grab Emily's arms, but the crocodile was too strong. The water around them turned red, and a few seconds later, Emily disappeared under the surface. The boys ran to the shore, shaking with fear. They screamed and called for help, but there was no one around. Tommy, in tears, grabbed the phone and called the police. Chapter 4: The Search. The news of the crocodile attack spread quickly throughout the town. The police and locals organized a search operation. Fishermen in boats combed the river, and hunters with guns patrolled the shore. Emily's parents, Mrs. and Mrs. Harper, were desperate. They begged rescuers to find their daughter, but there was little hope. Meanwhile, Tommy and Jake told everything they had seen. Their words were confirmed by tracks on the shore and bloodstains in the water. A local wildlife expert, Mr. Carter, examined the tracks and confirmed that it was a crocodile. "But how did it get here?" asked the sheriff. "Perhaps it was brought here illegally," suggested Carter, "or it escaped from a private zoo." Chapter 5: The Hunt. The next day, the search continued. Mr. Carter suggested using bait to lure the crocodile out. They placed a pig carcass on the shore and set up cameras. At night, the crocodile returned. The cameras recorded how it grabbed the bait and dragged it into the water. In the morning, a group of hunters went out in boats to track down the predator. They knew it was dangerous, but there was no other way. Tommy and Jake begged to go with them, but they were not allowed. A few hours later, the hunters found the crocodile. It was lying in shallow water, basking in the sun. One of the hunters fired but missed. The crocodile rushed into the water but was surrounded. After a long and tense fight, the predator was shot. Chapter 6: The Ending. When the crocodile was pulled ashore, everyone saw how huge it was. Its jaws were powerful enough to bite a person in half. The remains of Emily were found in the predator's stomach. It was a terrible sight, but it gave the girl's parents at least some comfort. They knew what had happened to their daughter. The town of Black Creek was plunged into mourning. Everyone in the town gathered for Emily's funeral. Tommy and Jake stood nearby, feeling guilty for not being able to save their friend. Chapter 7: Aftermath. After the tragedy, the town began to debate how to prevent similar incidents in the future. Mr. Carter suggested installing barriers along the river and inspecting all private zoos in the area. Parents began to keep a stricter eye on their children, forbidding them to go near the water. Tommy and Jake became closer to each other. They often came to the riverbank to remember Emily. Sometimes they thought they could hear her laughter in the rustling leaves. Epilogue. The story of the Black Creek crocodile became a legend. It was told in school lessons to warn children about the dangers of the wild. And on the riverbank, where the tragedy occurred, a monument to Emily was erected. A small plaque with her name and dates of life. The town gradually returned to its normal life, but the shadow of that tragedy remained forever. And every time the children approached the water, they remembered that nature can be not only beautiful, but also deadly.